Welcome to another episode of Reflections of a CEO, where I pull back the curtain on what it's really like to run a business. In today's episode, I'm actually going to answer a question that someone asked me on Instagram. And I said to my following, what business topic would you like me to cover? And someone said, deciding to fire someone and how to do it. So this is a really good question. It's something that when I had to fire or when I was going through, trying to figure out if I was going to fire my first person is a question that went through my head. So and it's still something I think about today, and I talk a lot with other people about, because it's not a cut and dry subject. It's something I've gotten a lot better at, and but let me take you back actually, just to share a little story. The first time I ever had to fire someone, or I didn't have to, right? I decided to fire someone. When I knew, I had this gut feeling, and I was looking at the business and the numbers and this person's performance, and it just didn't make sense anymore to keep them in the business, or at least that's what the conclusion I came to was. But it took me 6 months to actually go through with firing and letting this person go. It was just really hard. If you've ever run a business and you have to let go of that first person, it's super difficult. I was really scared, to be honest. I mean, firing someone at any point in time, right, is still hard. Whether you run a business, whether you are a manager, even today, letting someone go, it's not, it's not easy at all. But that first time, I remember, it took me about 6 months to finally build up the courage to actually let this person go. And I kept making excuses why I wasn't going to let them go. It's not so bad, or it's going to hurt them too much, or it's going to negatively affect their family, or, there was a story always like justifying why. But really it was hurting the entire business more by me not doing it. But, I finally worked up the courage to do it. And for like 3 nights before, I couldn't sleep. It was pretty awful. I was just thinking about how much this would affect that person, and So, anyways, the day came, and walking into it, I was like shaking. It was the first time I ever had to let someone go, and it was really difficult. And I ended up going through, and this person was actually they had a longer career than me, more experience, so. I'm very actually thankful to them. They took it very well, made it very easy, after the fact. Very simple, and it was fine. But the reason why I tell this story is, one, just to share like how much, like, if you've never done it before, that's okay. Like look at my experience. It took me 6 months. Now I learned a lot from it. One of which is, and I'm telling this story also because it leads up to why to fire someone, how to fire someone, and I think a big reason that it kind of didn't sit well with me is because this person didn't know it was coming, right? And that didn't really sit well with me. But I also I didn't know what else to do, so I just hid it from everyone. And then all of a sudden I did it, and it just really didn't sit well with me, that the person had no idea it was coming. And so that leads me to, and I'll touch on this later, how you actually do it. But when I think about, an employee and someone on your team, right, it really actually starts from the interview process and making sure that you're vetting out people as well as you can. But let's just assume that you got through that, you did well, and or you did the best you could, and now you have someone on your team, and you're looking at them and you're trying to decide, if you should fire someone. Typically, this comes about, I found, because or at least in my experience personally, right? You start noticing that the performance isn't great, or something's going on that's like making you start thinking about that, right? And the first thing that I always do is I look internally. I start saying, hey, is this actually my, something that I can help adjust, right? Like, is it that I wasn't clear on expectations? I didn't communicate something well, right? Like, to me, anytime you have to fire someone, it's actually the failure of you and management, because you're the one who hired someone, and there's something that you could have done, right? Either one, not let them in the first place, or two, did you not set standards well? Did you not communicate well, right? And there's two kind of big areas around that. One, and I like to separate it when I think about firing someone, right? There's performance related stuff, and then there's cultural related stuff. Okay, and one is much easier, in my opinion, right? Is culturally. So culture is something that I didn't used to do this, right? But now there's firing decisions based off culture, period. Like, that's it. Culture is so important, and you have to remove anything that influences your culture in a negative way, in something that you do not like, right? And you have to, when you think about it, the way I think about it is this something that is like super negative and this person cannot change? Right? Like, it's time, someone doesn't live up to a core value. Someone does something against the culture, right? Like, or that negatively impacts the culture. Hell, I'm not perfect and I do things, right? Is it something that is a repeated offense, or have you noticed that they are just, they do not fit the values of the company, right? And they're just being a negative influence, and a negative influence starts breeding. It starts slowly going, and you as the guardian of the culture, you have to remove that. So that is now a complete non-negotiable, and that's one reason like why we fire someone. Period. Like, if they are not a fit for the culture anymore. The second is performance related, right? Are they not performing to the standards that we want? Now, I will say in the past, when both of these scenarios have happened, I have not been good or fair, not even fair. Yeah, probably not even fair with people about really making the expectations clear. And so really I take a lot of the responsibility for it not working out, right? But what I like to do is, before it gets to that stage now, be very clear about expectations, right? Here's the expectations for what we believe to be high performance, and here's what we expect from the culture. Right? And then along the way, if people aren't performing well, either on a skill-based or a cultural level, right? Then have you actually worked with them? Have you coached them, right? So like on a skill thing, have you had a discussion with them? Are you giving them feedback all the time? I think being fair to someone starts before it gets to the time where it's like, oh, maybe we need to fire someone, right? Have you given them the feedback you need, that they deserve? Have you set the expectations right? Have you communicated to them, right? Was it clear? So leading up to when it's time where, they have repeated offenses, I want it to be such that when the person gets fired, they knew it was coming and they're totally fine with it. Because they know, they're like, you're right. And this is much easier, I found, by skill-based stuff, because, those things you can measure a bit. People kind of know if they're performing or not. They really do, I think, unless, especially if you've been fair with them and you've had check-ins and performance reviews and that sort of thing, where, I've had one time where this was probably the best, and I try to live up to that standard. And I don't have that many times of firing people, it's only been a handful, but I remember maybe a year ago when we let someone go, that day the person, they weren't surprised at all. Like, they're like, okay, that makes sense. We actually hugged on the way out. I felt really good about that. I felt very fair, because months before, it was kind of like, here's the expectations, and if you don't reach them, we can't have you here anymore. And so then it was, that was probably the easiest time firing someone, right? And it made it so that parting ways was, it still sucked, right? I don't like to do it, but they knew why. And that's what I really liked. When you have a cultural kind of thing, those I found, me personally, I actually haven't handled too well, because when someone doesn't fit the culture, or kind of like is a negative impact, I just will reach a point where I'm like, that's it, and then I remove them. Like, it's no questions asked, no, I mean, it will be, I will have conversation with them before, and try to address it. But once it reaches a point where I'm like, it's no longer, I don't think this is actually going to change, and they're now just going to be a negative force moving forward, then I just remove them. And with those ones, I wish I could say I've done a better job and people saw it coming, but they don't oftentimes see it coming, because we're just in disagreement around the culture and the values, and I tend to just make a decision and I do it. So in those cases, or in cases where, say, you haven't done a great job with the skills part, and you haven't set expectations well, right, leading up to when you actually fire someone. And look, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to give legal advice, I just know how we do it based on our legal advice that we've been given. Is when it comes to the moment of letting someone go, the safest way is not to say anything, right? Is just, hey, today's your last day, and we're letting you go. Some people won't agree with this, but that's the best way to legally protect yourself, right? Because if you now in New York, where we've been, based for 5-6 years now, it is an at-will employment. So and in our employment contract it says you can fire for cause or not. Like, we don't have to give a reason. And so that's what we do, right? Because if you try to give a reason, it opens you up to the ability to be sued and all of that. And I hate to even go that route and all this, but like, if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, you got to protect yourself, especially as a small business when you're self-funded. A lot of people want, in the moment they're going to say, why are you firing me, whatever, and it hurts, because you want to say, well, here's exactly why, and you just can't a lot of times. Hopefully, and this is why that pains me a lot. So I like to make it now that going into it, they know, they're not surprised. Then you don't even have to worry about it. But when someone asks you why and you can't say because you haven't done a good job ahead of time, giving them the notice, you just can't really say anything. And that's the best way to legally protect yourself as a small business, as self-funded. It's not something that employees want to hear, but you have to protect yourself. This is something you have to protect yourself, the business, right, and everyone in the room, because let me just be honest with it. Every dollar counts, and so if you get sued, right, that's money that's taken away from the business, right? It already costs a lot to fire someone and replace someone, right? I typically give severance packages, right? I've done severance, depending on the case. There's some times where I've given nothing, no severance, no nothing, and that's it. More often than not, though, I'll give anywhere between 2 weeks. The most I've given is 2 months, which is a lot for a self-funded small business. But 2 weeks I find is generally very nice. Max of 2 months. But that's kind of how I do it. Go in that day. Let me just walk you through it. It's like you go in and have a witness there, have someone else there. Walk in with a person, schedule the meeting. Try not to schedule anything that's too alarming. Go in and have all your paperwork, the legal paperwork, ready. The separation agreement, which has, the way it works. I don't know how it is per state, but basically you, at least for us, what we do is we have the separation agreement, and then if someone signs, they get the severance. It's contingent upon that, and that's what we do. It's very quick, easy, in and out. Now I've gotten better at it. And then you escort them out the building. If they have company property, tell them to leave everything, right? You don't want them touching any emails, company property, anything like that after. They need to just leave everything, and you need to escort them out, right? Because sometimes you don't know how people are going to react, right? Are they going to be upset at you and then vindictive or whatever it is? And you just have to protect yourself. It gets very much you have to be a little cold with it. You want to be as warm as possible. Hopefully it goes really well, but if you're not sure and it may go off, you have to be kind of cold with it and just kind of cut ties and that's it. But hopefully it's not, like, right? I'm kind of giving those like worst case scenario type stuff. You know, so that's the way I kind of look at it, is have someone else there. Make sure it's the manager, right? Like, if they report to you, you got to do it. You can't dish that off to someone else. You have to do it. Now that we're a little bit bigger, if it's someone, you know, if they report to someone else, no, I'm not always one to do it. In the early days, everyone reported to me, so I did it. Right, but that's how you kind of have to decide to do it, is, you know, hopefully, and what we've done now is we have job descriptions with expectations, and we're implementing, you know, employee reviews and all of that to make it much more black and white, right? Like, here's the expectation, you just like, did you live up to it or not? And so there you have it all documented, and that's it, right? Same with the culture. That's part of our values, are part of our scoring system now. Trying to just make it very much like black and white, so as much as possible. You know, other times if you have to lay someone off, that's a different story. I'm just talking about firing now. But if you don't have a lot of that stuff in order, you still have to make decisions, and you have to do it. Try to be as fair as possible. Try to, you know, if it's a performance thing, if you can, you know, give them a performance improvement plan. If you believe in their potential, then do it. If not, you have to cut ties, especially as a small business. Like, you can't have people dragging down the performance, right? And so if you give a performance plan, there's something like either 30, 60, or 90 days you have to like give someone. If you just decided it's the point and it's time to let them go, like, just do it and don't give them a cause, right? But again, that's like if you don't have things kind of set up. So, you know, in conclusion, try to be as fair as possible. Try to have clear expectations for both skills and culture, you know, from day one, and then have regular check-ins and progress review. And then if people aren't meeting those standards, you have to give them feedback in the moment, right? You don't want them to be like, oh, well, you never said anything. Like, that's just not fair to them, right? So give feedback all the time, right? So that hopefully they're not surprised by the time it actually happens. But if it gets to the point and you haven't managed it like that, and you just have to do it, then you go in and you do what you have to do, right? But that day, just really make sure to have all your paperwork ready, have a witness there, go in. We typically do it. I've done it two ways. One is either on Fridays, but we've started doing it now actually middle of the week, because if you give Fridays, like, we don't, you know, people have the weekend to kind of like stew on it, and it goes into the weekend on a bad note. So we started doing it on Wednesdays. I don't know if there's ever a right day or a good day to do it. Like, you're letting someone go, and you know, it's changing their life. But you also have to look at it, by the way, a lot of times, actually all times, like, if it's best for you, it's also probably best for them, right? You're actually letting them probably go into a better direction for their life, right? It's a weird thing to say, but that's something I've talked to my coach about, right? Like, if it's not working out for you, it's probably not working out for them too, and you could release them to go do something that's like the perfect best thing, right? Just because they're not a good fit at your company doesn't mean they're not a perfect fit somewhere else, right? So you're actually doing them a disservice, right, by keeping them on longer than longer than you believe you should, right? Like, that 6 months, when I waited 6 months, I should have done it month one, right? Because then he could have moved on quicker into something else, right? And I've actually seen that now that I've let people go. There's actually something right around the corner, either a month later, 6 months later, that was just such a better fit. And so now I look at it as like, hey, like, I'm releasing you because this is best for the company, and it's also best for you. You know, people don't always see it that way in the moment, right? But it's true, it is. So anyways, those are some thoughts on firing someone, how to do it, right? And why to do it. But in summary, right, why to do it? They're not performing, right, repeatedly, and you've decided that you know, they're not going to improve to the level you need. or that you don't want to take the time to help them improve because you don't have the time for that, because it's whatever it is, right? You get to decide, right? And then culturally, that's kind of like black and white for me. Like if they're really toxic to the culture, you have to remove it, right? That's not to say like one time it's an offense or anything like that. No, like work with them, but like once you know it's like this is not going to work, you got to do it. Then the day of, when you actually decide to do it, you know, go in, do it very quickly, and just out, right? Don't belabor it. Every time for me, it's been like 5 minutes, not long at all. And do it sooner rather than later. When you know, right? Like just make the decision, because it's again, one, it's fair for them. It's better for them to release them and go do something that's perfect for them. And if you know, don't delay it, right? Like get rid of the person and move on. Right now I'm much faster. I'm just like, okay, this is not a fit. It's not working out. Bad judgment, my fault. Bad decision on the hire. Not a bad person, right? I didn't say that, right? They're not bad. Bad decision on my part. You know, I failed. Cool, I'm going to release it. Move on. Next one, right? You know, you got to remove the emotion from it too. That's a very important part. Like, can't be emotional about it. You got to just make a clear business decision. Is it right to let the person go or not? And then just move on. Right? Yes, you are dealing with people's lives, and it can suck, but like you gotta make a business decision with it, and just move on with it. But do it faster, sooner rather than later. Anytime I've delayed, it's never been better because I delayed. Right? It just actually becomes worse, because then you're also not giving someone else the opportunity to come in and fill that position. Right? Either fill that position, or maybe you've eliminated the position. Right, and it's actually, you need to eliminate it, but then you added a completely new position, but you need to free up the salary cap or you know, salary space for it. And so the sooner you release someone, the more you can evolve. So make fast, you know, quick. You know, you've got to fire fast once you know, right? And you'll never 100% know. I mean, you'll know. I mean, for me, I'm like, okay, I know, and I'm doing it, right? And you know, you'll never know. Did I make the right decision? Who knows? Because you can't play out two scenarios. They stayed and they didn't. They're gone now, right? So you just have to make a decision and you go with it, and that's it, right? You know, people are like, well, what if I'm not making the right decision? You're not gonna know. You just got to make the decision and do it, and then when it feels right, and then you just do it, and then you adjust, right? And people won't always agree, right? Even people on the team won't always agree, and they won't always know what's going on, and you can't always tell them. You just have to hope that they all believe in you, and they have faith that you're making the right decision and it's best for the company. But people won't always understand. They don't know what it's like to have to make a decision like that always, right? People on your team have probably never fired someone before. They don't know what it's like. They don't know the business situation and scenario. So trying to like explain it to people is sometimes difficult. I do like to, though. You know, we have done this. Right after you fire someone, is telling the team, right? Going to everyone else. Make sure immediately after that you tell everyone, right? For anyone who doesn't know, right? You try to keep it under wraps. I do, right? Management team knows. It's on a need-to-know basis initially, but right after it happens, everyone on the team knows, right? We tell everyone, and we try to explain it in, you know, as much as possible, as much as we legally can, as much as we. You know, we try to be very transparent as a culture, but we also need to protect ourselves legally. But we try to explain it. Here's what happened. Here's you know, why, and you know, because you don't want them just like, you can't just not tell everyone. And we try to do it in person, right? For anyone who's remote, video, but in person with people. I've done it both one-on-one, you know, literally going person by person. That's how I like to communicate a lot of times. But sometimes we've done it in groups. Right, I would say whatever your method of communication is best, or depending on your team size, right? If you have 50 people, you know, one-on-one might not be possible. 5 people one-on-one you can. But when you tell everyone, I like to also tell everyone, and then either in that moment or later, give them space to ask questions, right? Let them ask questions. They're gonna have questions, and try to answer them. You know, they might be wondering, is my job at risk? Right? They might be wondering, like, why did you do this? Or they'll have a whole host of questions, but give them the space, right, to answer those questions, and you can really use that as a way to, you know, build trust again, or not again, but it's a good relationship building thing. It could be reinstill confidence because they might be scared in their job, or they might be scared about the company. Like, did we fire them because like we're running out of money, or did we fire, like, they might not know. So it's good to explain it to them, you know, in my view. So that's another little component that that you're gonna want to do most likely, right after you fire someone. So anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up there, and I could keep rambling on for more and more times here, but hopefully this gives you like a little intro into you know, what are some reasons to fire someone, how to do it, some real, you know, real life tactical type of stuff. But if you have any questions, please write them in the comments if you're watching my video. If it's the podcast, send, you know, if you're listening to my audio, find me on socials and message me. Please give me, you know, if you have a specific scenario or you want specific questions that I didn't cover. I tried to cover as much as possible in this, you know, 25 to 30 minute segment. But of course I can't cover it all. So please, if you have more questions, let me know. If you think this would help someone, please share it. You know, I wish I would have had something like this when I was, you know, going through my first firing scenario, is a reference like this, because, you know, what I did is I called up a couple of people who had fired people before and asked them some of these things, you know, how to do it exactly, like in that moment. But I didn't get a lot of this, like the learnings that I had in this thing, I got by just doing. So hopefully this can help someone and save them some, you know, saves them some time and some, you know, I don't know. Hopefully it will help someone. So anyways, please share it with someone you know. And if you liked it, please subscribe. Hopefully, you know, you've enjoyed this and it's been some help to you. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up. So thank you for joining me again for Reflections of a CEO. And I will see you all next time.